All right, and we make sure that we are live here. All right, looks like we are. Hello, Battlemech Warriors, Mage Leader here. I'm joined today by one of the biggest contributors to the channel, someone who needs no introduction to a good many of you. He's an artist who's made Battletech artwork not only for this channel, but also for Tex Talks Battletech. Today, he's here to talk to us both about his work and his current project, the webcomic Star Raiders. So, everyone in the chat, please welcome Spacer. How you doing, Spacer?
I'm doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. I actually have to say that I've waited for this quite some time. Really wanted to kind of talk about this stuff, so I'm
Yeah,
glad.
so we kind of had an agreement where I would promote his comic in exchange for having some artwork done, and he has been very patient in waiting for this day to come. As a lot of you have noticed, the quality of thumbnails on the channel went up drastically. I want to say maybe like 6 months ago, and Spacer has been waiting very patiently ever since for this sort of thing. But yeah, so why don't you give everyone a brief introduction of yourself, just in case I missed something, and just in case no one knows who you are.
Well, as everyone knows in the chat already, I'm Spacer. I'm doing the Battletech, the Star Raiders comic. I mean, as far as I know, the only Battletech comic that except from the '90s ones that were made. I do a lot of artwork and I play a lot of Battletech games. And to be fair, a lot of people ask me why do I do so much stuff and quite a lot of stuff. I mean, the whole comic for free. And it's really just my love of Battletech. I just feel like Battletech had a very, very sad run after Backward 4. It just had nothing coming out. And I feel like the last 3 years is just what this fandom needed. And so I was like, well, why not contribute to it? Because finally someone's going to be able to actually appreciate it because people are like, coming in. So why not expand on it? And that's what I've been doing for the last 3 years, just trying to basically expand the Battletech art, what would you call that? The amount of art that's online, the amount of content that's online.
Yeah, and
Because I
it's
think,
it's certainly worked too, because I've had a couple times where I've gone online looking for because how I get pictures for my videos. I use Google Images. Really, I go out there, I just pull a bunch of stuff and throw it into it like a blender. But your work has started to pop up quite a bit more just in general searching,
yeah.
so it's definitely having an impact.
Well, I think it's also, I think it's also the amount of work because it's just I'm making more and more and more. And the second part I think is a lot of people are featuring it in a lot of videos. So I know
Yeah,
Big Red used some of my images, and I mean text of course, and you. I feel just like it. The more and more it goes, the more people just even that I don't even know. I don't talk to them or ask them. They already start using it. So I guess that's why.
all right. So I want to put out something to the chat here. We got a whole list of questions here that I prepared in advance. Uh, but once I get through all of those, I plan on answering some from the chat or rather, presenting some from the chat for Spacer to answer. So if you guys have any questions you want to ask him as we go along, definitely type them in there. I will go back through and try and cover them all once we get through. I think our chat is typically small and slow enough that we could get away with that technique. So get your questions ready, and I'm going to move in. So I read Star Raiders a while back, back when we first started working together, and there were just a few pages back then, and I thought it had a lot of potential. So, in preparation for this interview, I went back and got myself properly caught up. Can you give everyone a brief synopsis of the story?
Well, the story is what I wanted to make, and I'll just say that as well. I really wanted to make a story that's, the core is BattleTech. It's something that everyone recognizes and likes. It's a place in BattleTech that everyone, kind of feels attached to. But also it's something that could be canon right now. But because the unit is just smaller, a unit of mercenaries, you can't say that it's not canon. It's like if you fall, if a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it fall, did the tree fall or not? That's kind of the thing. So that's why I'm saying like I think what I wanted to do really is a story which you could read and be like, this is canon, but of course it doesn't touch on major events because it's just a small mercenary unit. And what the story synopsis would be, really, it's just a story about a small merc unit that's trying to get by with some funny and maybe a bit of shitty characters and good characters and this and that, and how their lives just go inside of the BattleTech universe, what they're doing, and different missions that they go on to, different ways that the characters interact with each other. Because most of them that I try, especially the cast of the main four mech warriors, the main lads, I tried to make every one of them very different. And so how the characters bounce off each other and stuff like that. It's more of a, you would call it a slice of life in BattleTech. But BattleTech is not really your normal universe, so it's pretty extreme. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like kind of a day in the life of your average Joe.
Yes, basically.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's kind of where I went when I was writing my own story. I just kind of wanted to have something, not groundbreaking, not earth shattering, just a little story that provides like a little snippet of what it is about the world that's so interesting. But I noticed that the main character of the story is piloting a Jenner. That's one of my favorite light mechs. So is there a particular reason for choosing that one? Is that like a favorite of yours?
Actually, if you look at all the mechs, except the Bushwhacker, which is kind of out there, but all of their mechs are extremely unpopular, quote unquote. I mean, what I'm trying to say is they're not piloting an Atlas. They're not piloting a catapult. They're not piloting, it's not stuff that's really out there and everyone knows about it. I tried to put mechs in that people don't really associate as main character mechs. The
Right.
Dragon, the Jenner. I mean, the Bushwhackers, it was in the cartoon, so it's kind of there. And then, of course, the Champion, which no one ever thinks of the
Right.
Champion
No one ever
at all.
talks about that one. That was the one that surprised me. Like, not only is that in your story, not only is it it's kind of a wacky variant of it that I'm not super familiar with. So not only
If
all
you
of
actually
that.
if you read actually the bio of Salvador, the commander of the unit, you'll see why it's that variant. But
Right. So, but yeah, that's what I'm kind of going into. Not only is that a kind of a rarer mech, but it's also the one that the commander of the story is piloting. So it's definitely spotlighting some of the less popular, less well known mechs, which is definitely a good thing. I think that we get caught up in the memes with BattleTech a lot. Everybody has their favorites. There's the ones that work really well. It's something I try to do on my channel as well. Like, I made a video on the Chameleon. Who talks about the Chameleon?
no one talks about it.
No one talks about the Chameleon because it's not really a battle mech; it's a training mech. So that's kind of what I wanted to do when I started here. My first video was the Stalker because I wanted Tex to make a video on the Stalker. I got tired of waiting, so it's like I make my own. So I definitely
There's also a
respect
mech
that sort of thing.
people don't talk about a lot, to be fair. So
Yeah.
I really only wish that I could have made artwork when you did that one for the Stalkers. I love the Stalkers.
Well, hey, I mean, like those original videos are really rough. I didn't know it. I was still fairly new to BattleTech when I started this channel, so I was getting like lore details wrong and all kinds of stuff like that, making extrapolations that weren't accurate. So I do plan to at some point go back and redo a lot of those older videos. So there's definitely a chance that you could do that.
Well, I want to say one thing. I actually extremely appreciate your early videos because your early videos were a cut of BattleTech, not by someone that studies the lore, not by someone but someone that's coming into BattleTech. And a lot of times, if you put a very, very what would you call it, like a extremely knowledgeable and expert. That's what I'm looking for. An expert in front of someone, people get. They're like, okay, that's a lot of info. Okay, that's a lot of things. Okay, well, wait. It's a bit much.
Right.
But you went in as like a normal person that just wants to play BattleTech, and I really loved your videos when you began because that's when I started watching. And I was like, he's talking like someone that likes BattleTech, and he's coming and it's like, I want to talk about mechs, and that's you were actually one of the reasons as well why I started the comic. You and Tex and everything, because it was just this influx of people that just really wanted to do BattleTech. Is it more of a I want to talk about mechs, or I want to just discover every single small snippet of the story like Tex? It didn't matter, but it was something. There was something happening. That's why I loved it.
Okay. Wow. That's a lot to take in. I definitely appreciate that. But yeah, I'll move on to the next question here. And so in reading your comic, I noticed you've got a particular talent for mech action. I found the battle scenes very easy to follow. They're very visually interesting. Is that something you've had a lot of practice with?
No, actually, when I started drawing the comic, I did only a few artworks. But Shimmering Sword, if someone here knows who he is,
Oh
he's the
yeah, we
main
know
art
Shimmering Sword.
director. Yeah, I met him in 2019 on what is it called on Gen Con when I still lived in Europe. Basically, I just came to visit, and I was like, "Oh wow, your art is extremely amazing. Like I love Battletech and stuff." It's like I'm drawing this stuff already. I already have like a small webcomic I did before. It's like, oh, and he's like, "Oh wow, this looks good. You should do Battletech webcomics." I'm like, I can't do Battletech webcomics. I don't know how to draw mechs. He's like, "You can draw mechs." And I was
Yeah.
like, and I came home and I was like, I guess I'll draw mechs. And then I went, and that's just how it started. Like, one time I just picked up a pen. Picked up my pen for the tablet. I was like, I'm gonna draw Mark II, and I did. And I was like, this looks pretty good. Maybe I should go and do more of this. And that's how it just started. Actually, you can see the Mark II on the redone thing that I did like 2 months afterwards when I did it better on my DeviantArt account. And it's a bad picture because it's old. But that's the first one actually when I was like, wow, this is good. And
Yeah, it's kind of funny to hear you say that because I've if I could offer like a little bit of an observation, I think your mechanical work is kind of outpaced everything else apart from like your backgrounds, which are awesome. We'll get to that in a later question, but like your mech work is particularly really solid. So it's kind of surprised me to hear that you weren't really drawing them before you started with BattleTech.
in the beginning, I did everything freehand, and then later I went to do stuff through 3D models as well and stuff like that. Like when I'm
Gotcha.
doing a lot of detailed pictures of mechanics and stuff, I would use that just because when you're doing a page, like a page of what is it called, a webcomic, you're not doing one picture. So like the Mad Cat that I have on the background of the comic, that's a freehand. But when you're doing a comic where there's mechs moving all the time, doing everything freehand would take a huge amount of time.
Right.
So what I do is I use a 3D reference model.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's it, just because it's easier and stuff like that.
Right. I know Oswald does that quite a bit as well. He uses the mechs from MechWarrior 5 and from HBS BattleTech when he's doing his artwork as well. It works
Oh yeah,
to
but
really good effect.
I have them as rigged models,
Yeah.
but my own. Like what I'm trying to say is my own design or MechWarrior 4 design, and they're rigged models that I can just pose and be like, okay, so that's how that gun looks from that angle. Great.
Right, yeah, and I've noticed that because of the mechs that you use in your comic tend to be a lot more like the classic like TRO designs than they are to anything that's recently come out. You seem to have a particular affection for MechWarrior 4. I've noticed while I was reading, I'm pretty sure you had the HUD from MechWarrior 4 in one of their cockpits, where it like shows the
Every
twisted
cockpit
right
has
thing.
it.
Yeah, I noticed it while reading. I was like, oh, that's really like that's my favorite MechWarrior game. That's the one that got me into
If you
BattleTech in the
actually
first
noticed
place.
as well, another thing is the lasers are the same paints as MechWarrior 4 as well, meaning
Right,
there's
the
no blue
colors.
lasers.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's not the red is the small laser. Medium lasers are like a smaller green, and then large lasers are just bigger green lasers. There's no blue lasers. That's what I'm trying to say.
right. Okay, yeah, I did notice that. And like blue is for like the PPCs and Gauss rifle type of stuff.
Yeah, I never understood why they changed that in MVO. They made it blue because the big large lasers were never blue in the story, as much as I know. But
I don't remember reading about blue ones, but I mean like all the uh, laser color is determined by just like what type of stone you're using to focus it. So
right,
they could theoretically be any color you wanted, but
I would understand if it's the ones from the clans,
yeah.
but it's not the ones from the clans. So it's like it's all of them are blue. So I'm like,
Okay. Yeah. So you mentioned you're from Europe. Whereabouts are
Yes.
you from?
From Croatia originally.
Okay. So that means English is not a first language for you.
Uh-uh.
Okay. All right. So do you find it challenging to write in a different language?
No, because English technically is my first language already because I studied medicine in London, and was that was like in college. And
Gotcha.
then after that, I went to Florence for some design stuff as well, which is all in English. And then, I came to live in the US, which is all in English. So basically, I talk English more than I talk any other language, although I know German and Italian and of course
I,
Croatian. But
yeah. I was gonna say, like, you've got a very good command of it for sure. Because you gotta understand, I'm an American. I don't know any other languages. I know I could maybe order a burger in Japanese if I was pushed to it, but that's about the extent of my other languages. So it's definitely impressive to see somebody working in more than one language for sure. To someone who's as ignorant as we are over here. Uh,
come on up. All right, sure, thanks.
Look, we have very low standards over here because we're stupid. So about how long have you been making comics?
I don't know. I think it's about 10 years.
About 10 years. Okay.
I think so at least, because it's yeah, I don't know, 16 or something is like when I just started like making some bullshit and stuff. So I would say 10 years because now I'm 27. So
All right. So would you say this is like something you did as a kid just for fun, and it just kind of blossomed
oh,
out
I
from
did it in
there? Or?
high school. I would actually draw a lot of really good stuff and on the back of like notebooks and stuff. And then
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend who was like, "Dude, you should do this." And I'm like, "I can't do this." He's like, "You should do this." And that's how I started doing, random stuff. And then that's how I came to here.
Gotcha. Okay. So like, what sort of comics did you do before BattleTech?
Just other random stuff that's online and stuff like that. No, never actually. I never actually went something into. This is something where I spent a lot of my money and time, and money by the fact that I didn't do my own website. I had to get someone to do the website and everything, and for advertisement and everything. I really did this for like I'm gonna do this professionally. I want to make this look nice. I want every single person that likes BattleTech comes here and be like, oh, what the fuck is this bullshit? It's like, no, this is nice. This is a good one. I like this. I like this site. That's what I was trying to do. That's why I have the mechs with their wiki, not wiki, but Sarna links in there. All my characters have bios. I wanted to make it look nice,
Okay.
and I hope I did.
Yeah, I would say that you did. It's one of the things that actually kind of impressed me while I was reading through the comic. It's a very easy site to navigate. It's very intuitive. On my particular desktop setup, it's a little more zoomed in on the pages, so I have to scroll a little bit. But like that's a very minor thing. And
Oh, I can click on the page and then it zooms the page basically.
yes,
Page
and I
layout.
realized that like after when I got to like the end of the last page of chapter 2, part 2.
Oh,
So I read the whole thing. But like you have to understand, I've been reading comics on like pirated manga sites, so having a slightly clunky way of looking at pages is not an issue for me whatsoever.
well, that's why that's the point. The point of it was that since I have a big monitor as well, it's like, do you want to look at like by scrolling down and being like, okay, I don't want to look at the whole page and be surprised what's going to happen, or do you want to just click and look at the whole page all at once? And then
Okay.
you have features to zoom in on the page, to zoom out of the page, to make it like when you click on the middle of the page, it actually says click page to zoom whenever your mouse goes over the page.
Right.
So
Okay. Yeah, for sure. So there's a lot of mecha franchises out there. Lots of them have the in-depth lore, and they have the political intrigue and all that. So what was it that drew you to BattleTech specifically out of all the others?
well, to be fair, actually, before that, I just want to say one more thing, because I forgot to mention it before when you asked me about why I was doing the comic like I'm doing it. One reason as well was that I really want someone that plays like BattleTech RPG to feel like this could be them. I heard a lot of stories from Arcos Raid, how he's running his own campaign, and I drew like connected things to my. I'm like, someone could run this as a campaign too, and it would be pretty good. So that's why I'm also doing it the way I'm doing it. So I just wanted to say that.
Okay.
Um, but what drew me to this one? MechWarrior 4.
Same.
That's the
Totally.
way that I learned about it. For a long time, I just was extremely sad because I just thought BattleTech died. Like
Yeah,
for real. I
same.
just thought I was just so fucking sad.
Yeah.
And that's why actually BattleTech is this is gonna sound like a joke, but it's not. BattleTech is one of the reasons that I moved to the U.S.
Okay.
That's how much I love this.
Wow. Okay,
I
so
mean,
this is a
next to
big deal
me,
for you.
yeah, next to me there's a 1.5 foot tall Mad Cat, the 1992, Mad Cat that got released like as a
Oh,
as
like the Tycho toy from like the cartoon.
I have all the toys and I have all the everything, but this was the
Oh, that's
one
so
that
cool.
they got released in plastic. It's like it's the what is it called? It's like the construction plastic that they mold with the they mold into like a shape. And there was only I think 2,000 made, and it got released in 1992. If you Google 1992 Mad Cat, you'll
All right,
see
hold on.
what
I'll
it's.
do that, and I'll show it off to the audience here. Let me do that.
I can also send
1992.
a picture of it on Discord.
Yeah. Oh no, I've got results here. Let me pull
Okay,
it up.
there you go.
Oh damn, that is cool. Oh, it's a vinyl figure. That's what we're looking at.
I know. Wait, really?
That's what it says on the result here. Let me pull up a good.
Let's see.
Actually, I can open image in new tab and then just pull this in for people to look at. There it is. God damn. that is
It
cool.
showing on stream? Like I don't know if it's showing on stream.
It should be showing on the YouTube. It's in my streaming software.
It just seems our pictures are there, so I don't
Oh,
know.
okay.
I'm like saying.
Oh yeah, my screen share.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's the one.
okay, yeah. So that's
I sent one. I sent mine into the. What is it called? Into the thingy the chat. So you can. There's my. And also there's Mech Commander books next to it, of course. But
yeah. So that's really cool stuff.
it's a giant mech.
You said it's what, like 1.5 feet?
About yeah. I mean,
Damn.
it's more like 1.25 feet.
So
I guess.
like how much did that run you? Because now I'm curious.
Too much.
Too much? How much is?
Although
Hold
I
on,
bought
I
it.
see an eBay listing. Let's take a look.
I don't think so. I found one.
$600. Holy Jesus. Oh.
Wait, you found one on eBay?
Battletech Mad Cat Horizon 1/35th scale vinyl model kit 1992, very rare.
Oh wow, you found one on eBay. Wow, really? I never seen one other than the one I bought.
The price is
Never
$600. That is wow.
I'm guessing this one isn't broken. Maybe I don't know. The one I got was
It's
pretty
in
fucked up.
pieces. It's in the bag still.
Okay, so it is. Whoa! What is this new?
Yeah, it's not even assembled. Yeah, that's probably why it's so
Wow.
expensive. But holy shit. So yeah, if anyone in the chat has a $600 laying around, there's an eBay listing for this thing. You can take a look.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
What? No way. There's another one I found in the box.
Yeah.
There's a $300 one that's in the box. I would like to get this just so I can yeah, but it's partially assembled. Fuck that.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean that's kind of the case when you get something that's over 20 years old.
I mean,
30,
it's
30
only
years
box,
old.
so
It's
it's
over
like-
30 years old.
Yeah, it's a beautiful kit. It's a bit clunky, but mine is filled out with like 1992. What is it called? A newspaper to like make it not be like to make it bulky. So I actually took out once or twice the newspaper inside. I wanted to see what's like up, and it says like. It said like a thing for a new Cadillac that was released in 1992. I was like, what the fuck?
That's awesome.
Someone like, yeah, and I was like, wow, that's awesome that it's like has history inside of it. But yeah, okay. So you asked me how I was drawn to BattleTech. Yes, it's basically MechWarrior 4. Really, it's that. After that, I remember vividly when I opened I was like on YouTube and I saw MechWarrior 5 is gonna get released in 2009. I was so happy. I think I watched that thing
That original trailer for MechWarrior 5
every day.
is so fucking cool.
And then after like 3 or 4 months, I was just like, what the fuck, where is it? I mean, I was a kid still. I was like, what's happening? Why is not? And then just after like a year, I was like, oh, okay, it's not coming.
Right.
And
No.
then MechWarrior Online got released, and I was like, wow, this is gonna be great. And I was disappointed.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, MechWarrior 4 got me into it as well, a little differently. Like, you've obviously been following BattleTech longer than I have, so I it was like 3 years ago, I think. I was no, it's longer than that. It would have been like 4 or 5 years. I was still in college, and I stumbled upon. I followed Razorfist for God,
Oh my god,
basically
that
since his
video.
basically since his
Yes.
channel started. And one day I had apparently missed it, but I stumbled across his "Welcome to BattleTech" video, and I watched that. And it just looked so cool. I'd seen
Mhm.
the Mad Cat in passing in a couple places, so I recognized its shape. I just didn't know what it was from. And in the video, he mentioned that MechWarrior 4 was abandonware and that you could get it for free. So I went looking, I downloaded it, I got it running,
How did
and
you get it
I
running?
failed a philosophy class. No, wait, not philosophy, psychology. I failed a psychology class that I wasn't interested in taking because rather than rather than listening to the lecture, I sat in the back on my laptop, turned the volume all the way down, and played MechWarrior 4 during class time.
What laptop was it? What laptop was it? Like what Windows was it running?
It's Windows 7, I believe.
Yeah, that because Windows 7 can run it very easy, and then everything else just no.
Yeah, I've gotten it running on Windows 10. I can play it on my current PC. It just took a little bit. If you follow the directions that are on myabandonware.com, they've been updated. It will get it running on Windows 10. Windows 11, good fucking luck because nothing runs on Windows 11.
Well, that's why I just got myself. I went on Facebook Marketplace here in Houston, and I went to look for a gaming PC that's an XP, and I got a 2003 gaming PC next to me. That's Windows XP, and the only thing on it is Mech Commander 1, Mech Commander 2, Mech Warrior 4, and all the other Mech Warrior 4, so Black Knight and Mercenaries.
Nice. Yeah.
That's the reason why I have it, basically.
It's just an XP machine. I mean, God, that's such a good operating system.
It is. It is. I even got the old monitor with it, so it's like.
All right. So in your story, we're following a group of mercenaries. Definitely one of the more common avenues to take when writing BattleTech fan stories. Uh, as someone who's writing one of these stories, you've mentioned briefly why it is you chose mercenaries, but like, do you feel like there's any sort of advantage that gives you over
It
picking like the bigger events?
Well, first of all, I want to make it canon. Like, I want someone that read this not to be like, this can't be canon because they do something that's obviously not canon. I don't want that. That's a big first thing. The second thing really is that it gives you the freedom to go wherever you want, like just to do whatever you want, you know. And the third, which is the most important one, I think, it gives you the freedom to make up places and stuff that they go not make up places, but like make up scenarios and planets. Because whenever I write this comic, whenever I go to a new chapter, when they go to a new planet, I spend at least like 4 or 5 hours. Not even joking. It's pretty ridiculous. My girlfriend comes in and is like, "Oh, did you do it?" I'm like, well, "No, I'm still like looking for this." And she's like, "Why? You said like 3 hours ago. You said you're gonna start doing it. Like, do it so we can go somewhere or something." And it's like, I go and I research the planet, the planet's history, the planet's bio, the planet's like a biology, and what kind of everything about it. And I
Yeah.
look all throughout the history of the planet and everything. So basically, I pick something that doesn't have history, because then no one can say this is not canon.
There you go. I mean, that's what I did as well. Like twist of the knife. The reason I picked Lothan as the planet is because there's one recorded battle on it, and from there it's just, eh. Like there isn't even
That's
notes about
why.
what the climate's like or what it like. Is it a forest planet? Is it like a practically worthless death planet? Is it full of resources? We don't know. It's just a planet. So
Well,
I
that's why
picked
the
that one
next one.
specifically because I could tell a story there without stepping on too many toes.
Well, actually, the next one that I'm doing is the what is it? Planet Lancaster. That's gonna be in chapter 3. And if someone knows where that is, then they know what's gonna happen. And also, if you look at the year, then you'll know what's gonna happen. But yes, so that's the next part. And again, planet that doesn't have too much history, has some, but not too much.
All right. So is this group of mercenaries like something you made up for the tabletop? Do you like paint and play them with the minis?
No, I just really wanted to make them there. That's It's so funny because when I actually started doing them, like I was thinking about the name for so long, like how am I gonna name them to like actually be generic but not like forgettable. And same with the mechs. I was debating so much what kind of mechs I'm gonna put him. I just knew that Roy, he's not really the main guy because all of them are the main character kind of because the story follows all of them. They kind of just see a lot of stuff through his point of view.
Yeah.
But I knew that he's gonna be in a Jenner. That was the only mech that was picked.
Okay.
Everything else, like I was trying to see what's what kind of thing I would like to like put them in, and that's the same way that the colors. Oh my god, I remember how long it took me like a week to figure out how I'm gonna paint the actual mechs because I wanted to make them look nice but not look too complicated to paint because I'm gonna paint those mechs hundreds of times.
Right.
So many pages.
Right. So you don't want to be too involved. Yeah, for sure.
And I also didn't want to make it camo because camo is a bitch to paint because after you paint it once, you have to know that the next time you paint it, it has to be the same camo. It can't be different. So it's like, god damn it. And then that's why I chose the way I did. That's why I chose the colors that I did. It's a solid 2-color one with a stripe down the middle, and I think it's pretty okay.
All right. So yeah, like the main character of the story is just the Star Raiders themselves.
I guess so. Yeah, I think
it's like the whole unit.
Yeah, I think we're following all of them, and that's the same reason when you asked me like how did I actually come up with like I think that's what you asked like about that like story and stuff like why actually it's what they're doing is this because I just wanted to have kind of a broad story where I can just go left, right, whatever kind of way I want to go. I can go to this planet, I can do this, I can do that. There is a story in the head, and I have written down the overarching story, but everything in the middle is not written down. Everything is how to actually get to there is not written down. That's why I always ask on my Facebook group for the comic, please, if you have any suggestion, just tell me.
All right. Well, that's a great way to approach it for sure. So I'm a bit of a writer myself. I know writers tend to pull their ideas from lots of different places.
Yes.
So like what kind of what other stories or media would you say inspired the characters in your team of mercenaries?
A lot. I mean, a lot. I would. That's a question I don't even know how to start answering.
Okay.
It's so much.
Can you think of like maybe one or two examples, and we could just like
the stoic nature of the captain was inspired by some old anime and stuff like that. How the leaders act there. There we go. That's like old 80s anime basically.
Yeah, he does definitely have that kind of vibe to him. Like I'm trying to think. Kind of like he reminds me of Bright Noah from Gundam quite a bit, though he's obviously a lot older and more experienced than Bright was, but he's got that same sort of snap out of it, do your job type of mentality.
I guess. I mean, as said, there's a lot of it. I wouldn't pinpoint it to one person. It would just be like a lot of that. Roy would be kind of if you ever had to give a personality to the guy in the Mech Warrior 2 Mercenaries intro that's running away with the commando.
Yep.
That sort of deal. Like he's good, he's experienced, he knows what he's doing, but he's also a bit for Salvador's liking, he's too good. He's not a piece of shit. And I mean, being a mercenary, you have to be a piece of shit. I know it's sad to say, but technically speaking, Salvador is right. You have to be a killer and be merciless because you're getting paid to do it. So
yeah, it's definitely one of the things I noticed is that the comic is pretty dark actually.
Yeah, it is.
Battletech, I've kind of always described it as kind of having a T for teen rating. A lot of it, it has its moments where it can get dour, but for the most part, it's fairly family friendly most of the time. Star Raiders is not. It's very much intended for mature audiences. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah, I would. Because also that's the same way I mark it on what is it called on my Facebook. It's 18 plus when I go and do marketing on the actual to spread awareness and stuff of it. There's nothing actually explicit in the comic. There's no blood or gore or any kind of sexual stuff. So there's nothing that in that way, but it is darker. That's for
Right.
sure.
Yeah, it's not gratuitous, but it definitely is. It's definitely geared more towards mature audiences. Like there's like one explosion in particular I can think of. I won't spoil for people who haven't read it yet, but there's a couple of explosions that are particularly oh shit, they just got fucked up type of thing.
Yeah, kind of. The point is that the comic wants to showcase that BattleTech. I always thought of BattleTech as that, as like pretty PG, 13 or whatever you would call it. Not something that's like for kids, but for teen basically.
Yeah.
But it seems like BattleTech is so much more, and in a lot of the places where you would have something happen, the Star Raiders is not the comic about heroes.
Right.
It's a comic about mercenaries.
Right.
And I write it as a comic about mercenaries, meaning that at the end of the day, other than Roy, everyone else really just wants money. And Roy does too, but he's just he doesn't really want to be a piece of shit to people, or a killer, or just a merciless killing machine. But that's the point. A lot of times when you have movies and stuff set up in the we're mercenaries kind of thing, and like we're doing this and that, it treats those people really nicely. It's like, oh, they're mercenaries but they're good, or oh, they're bounty hunters but they're good. It's like whatever the Star Wars stuff is, or stuff like that.
Right.
And they're not, and that's how it should be. It should be that it's not good. They're not good people.
Yeah.
And the stuff surrounding them is not all sunshine and rainbows. It's death and
right. Especially with like the bigger mercenary, like the bigger, more famous mercenary units. Like I've talked a lot about my favorite BattleTech book is Highlander Gambit by Blaine Parno. I think that's a fantastic book. But I mean, like the Northwind Highlanders are kind of just good guys in that story. There's not a whole lot of edge, or even in the follow-up book. I'm trying to remember what the name of it is now. But even in that book, it's very much they are the good guys. These are the bad guys. They're gonna go save the day or whatever.
You're right about that, but also I think the Northwind Highlanders have one thing that's different, and that's that they're coming from what is it called? The Black Watch.
Yeah, partially.
So maybe that's kind of why they're like that, but you are very right.
They have a family culture, and that's the thing about them with the Scottish ancestry is they have a very well not clan like in like the clans sense, but clan like in like the ancient Terran sense of the word. They're all related to each other. They all know each other. They're all very connected as a family unit, and so that kind of breeds a more, I guess I could say, wholesome attitude. But you see that with like the Wolf's Dragoons and the Kellhounds too. You don't really see them doing a whole lot that's questionable. It happens here and there, but for the most part, it's very clear cut who the good guys and the bad guys are.
That's what I don't like about some stories sometimes, because BattleTech should be not about that.
Because there are plenty of novels that do delve into the morally gray part and portray their characters as such, but at the same time, there's a temptation to make your mercenaries the good guys, and I definitely appreciate that you've kind of moved away from that and shown them as, the more ambiguous type of characters that they should be.
I've shown them as mercenaries. That's the point.
Right. It's not like, oh, well, we're too good for that contract. It's like, no, we need to pay the bills this month, and this is ugly, and we gotta go do this now. But hey, it pays the bills. And that's how we do things here.
That's why I actually wanted to do it like I did with the characters, because each of them bounce off each other. It's like Salvador is the stoic leader that if you read his bio, it's not a secret. You can go and read it. His father was in was part of Comstar, so that's actually where the champion comes from. It's a SL variant. That's why it's like that.
Right.
So he's very stoic. He knows, it's kind of a complex of falling down sort of thing, because your father was in Comstar and you're a mercenary. So there's that. Then we have again Roy. That's kind of as I said, ambiguous in the way of like he's trying to just do his best, but he's not bad, but his emotions lead to like him not being the best. Then we have, I mean, every single character in there has some flaw, every single one. Like it's not like there's one that I can say, okay, this guy is the good guy. I mean, Roy kind of, but he's more of the incompetent good guy. You know, like not the he's not gonna risk his life for someone, but like he's trying to at least be good. You know what I'm trying to say?
Right. He has a conscience.
Yeah, Elena, the girl, she has a. I mean, if you read stuff and stuff like that, she has a, not the best past, and she kind of feels like this is her actual home now. You know where she is in this thing, but she doesn't agree as well with all the stuff that's happening. And then Ramon was just kind of a gangster guy, and he's just like, fuck it, I'm gonna kill people. It doesn't matter as long as I get paid. And he could be considered the bad guy, but also he's just doing his job.
Right.
So it's like not really. See, that's why I'm saying morally ambiguous, because it's like none of them are evil. If they're targeted to go kill, then really the only person you could say that it's evil is Salvador because he's the one that gets the contract. But
Yeah. Well, you know who he reminds me. He reminds me of Corcus from Berserk, where it's like he's a mercenary. He's doing his job. He's very clearly motivated by personal gain, and he's a bit of an asshole. But at the same time, like he's our asshole, you know?
yeah, there's with him there's a you can. That's what I wanted to say. That's why it's literally very important when you read that he is his dad was in the in Comstar, because his dad was in Tukiyid, and when you think about that, you would feel inferior to your forefathers if your forefathers were in the SLDF and Comstar and you're a mercenary. So there is the void of that you need to fill with something, and that something is money.
Right. So I know it takes a lot of work to make a comic. There's tons of planning that goes into it, and a lot of writing that goes into it. How long does it usually take you to make a complete page?
Way too long. Especially right now, I got contracted by some other companies to draw stuff for them. You're gonna see. I mean, I think I can say that no problem. I'm not sharing anything, but you're gonna see my art in the new books of Heavy Gear.
Oh wow!
Yeah, they contracted me to do art for them. So that, and there's another miniature company as well. Then might contract me to do a whole comic for them, which is a lot.
Holy shit!
Yeah, and so lately it took me way too long. Like I haven't finished a page in the last 3 weeks, but that's because I'm not drawing the page. I'm just drawing everything else that I have to. Also, there's a ton of schoolwork too, because I'm doing animation and stuff right now in school. I'm studying for animation major too.
Oh wow!
So it's like that's also there, and it's like there's a lot of stuff that's piling up, and it's like I can't have time for everything. But in a normal sense, it really depends on the page. If the page is like a lot of mech action, it's gonna take a week. Because I do it usually every day for about 3 or 4 hours. And if it's more of a conversation piece, with them talking with each other, and it's not as much action and mech action and stuff like that, it's gonna be no problem a like 3-day thing. So.
All right. So yeah, like it would depend obviously on how much there is to draw on a given page.
Yeah. What kind of stuff there is to draw on a given page.
Okay. What would you say is the hardest part of making Star Raiders?
Finding the free time for everything, because you would not believe how long I said already, it takes you to like draw everything and do everything, and it sometimes takes a long time to get everything done. But one thing that I really like is that every single time I'm drawing it, it's like I want it to continue, not for everyone's sake, because I want everyone to read the comic, but also just because I want to continue my own story. It's like I want to do it, so that's kind of motivating to go forward. But the boringest part has to be like line work and stuff like that. That's the hardest part.
Gotcha.
It's so boring you fall asleep because I already sketched the page. Because how I do it's like I first do rough sketch, then I do a clear cut sketch, then I do line work, then I do painting, and then I do some more effects on over the top of it, and I put the words and the bubbles in. but the line work is it takes basically not the most time because painting takes the most time, but it's the boringest part. Oh my god, it's just like, oh god, please, I'm gonna fall asleep.
Right.
So that's the worst. There you go. That's the worst part, I think.
Okay.
Because it's not a, everything you're kind of doing something. You're painting. You're completing something. Or when you're sketching, at least you're putting the sketch down. But with line work, you're just going over your own lines. So it's like, oh.
Yeah, you're just making it look nicer.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's maybe, there you go.
Okay. So on the flip side of that, what do you enjoy the most about working on this project?
Creating the story.
Yeah.
Really, it's planning and then putting the first sketch down. That's like the most enjoyable part. Of course, everything, having it completed and stuff like that is because I do the words and everything when I'm doing the first sketch. I plan the words out then. But when I'm making that first, I'm putting the first sketch down. I'm putting the first, like, oh, they're gonna say this here. This is gonna. I love that the most because you're actually creating something from nothing. It's like you're visualizing the story in your side, your inside of your mind, and that, I think that's the most fun part. Definitely takes sometimes longer than I would like to, but it's I think it's the most nice one. Except the other one, which is completing the page. That's one of the best parts too. When you just complete and you're just like, oh my god, it's done. Look.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I definitely see that. Because like I said, I like to write stories as well. When you actually get something out of your head and into a physical form that other people can see, there's something very enjoyable about that. So I can definitely relate to that sort of thing. I will say I'm a really big fan of like the way you handle lighting in your comic. There's some underwater scenes in the first part of chapter 2 that are particularly really, really good. I'm going to pull out one of the examples for the chat to see here. So there you guys go. You can take a look at that there. So the thing that catches my eye is it's the Jenner underwater. There's kind of a close up or like a medium shot of it, just kind of shining the searchlight out, and the way the rays go through, the particle effects, all that sort of thing. I would say it's professional quality, just about.
I don't think it's on the stream though. I don't think it's.
It's not showing up on your thing. That I don't know why. I thought I had shared
now
like.
Now it's up.
Okay. Yeah, there might be like a delay.
It could be, right.
So, yeah, all the particle effects, all the rays, all that sort of thing looks fantastic. It actually does look like how light goes through water. So, like, where did you learn how to do things like that? Is that something that you self-taught yourself, or is that
Self-taught? Everything, all the drawing is self-taught.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
It's just 10 years of drawing, so it
Okay.
just comes up slowly. So yeah, it is. Believe me. Sometimes people say like, and I mean, every single artist always says that. They're like, people are like, oh wow, you're gifted. I'm like, it's not that you're gifted. It's just that I draw a lot. It's like I could never do that. It's like,
Right.
you could just go and draw.
Yeah,
Go pick up a pen. It's like, but it's hard. I don't know how. It's like, believe me, if I right now went into, I mean, that PC or those files would be like somewhere back in Europe. Found them and brought them here on the stream. You all would laugh at how stuff looked when I started drawing when I was 16. But that's the point. You come from nothing and then you go to something. It's not. The point is that you create something while going, through a period of time. If you just know it instantly, then it's not a talent.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's the same sort of thing with like with writing as well. I have no gift for drawing whatsoever. I could probably teach myself to do it a decent amount. Just man, that's a lot of stuff to work at. But the thing that I've done a lot of is reading and writing my own stories. I mean, if you were to read the first thing I wrote, it was back when I was 8 years old, and it's awful. it's just awful. So, it's something that you practice at. You do a lot of reading. You look at what other artists or writers have done. You try to emulate that a little bit in your own work. You take criticism from other people, and you just keep plugging away at it until you eventually feel confident enough to put it out there.
That's why I always say to everyone, whenever someone wants to like criticize something or say something that they will, again, that's why I post like whatever you would like, tell me on my Facebook thing, and I appreciate everything. Any criticism is good criticism. It doesn't matter what it is. It's as long as it's something I can grasp and say, okay, this is good criticism, or he's right, this is not good, this is I like that. That's why I don't get offended when someone's like this or that. Fine, okay, good. I mean, you don't like it, great. Then you do like it, awesome. That's the point.
Yeah. Well, you're better at taking criticism than I am, for sure. I'm all emotionally caught up in my work, so someone tells me they don't like something, and I have a tendency to get defensive. I try to take it, but at the same time, I also self doubt and then run off and slam my head against the wall. And, oh, it's
Well,
horrible. But
maybe at the beginning I was like that too. I can't really say, but that I think that sort of way of criticizing is what brought me to paint this good. Because
right,
you can
exactly.
always limit yourself to what you're like. Oh, okay, well this is enough. I don't need to paint better because this is enough, right? This is good. But then if someone says, well, why couldn't you do this like this? And you're like, why couldn't I have done like that? Maybe I should go back and retry that. And then that's how you learn how to do that work, which you just saw.
All right. So I noticed you go into the operational details quite a bit in your story. Like there's actual techno babble, other such stuff in the dialogue. Do you come up with all that yourself, or is it like based on things you've read in TROs and such?
What exactly? Is there a specific thing?
The thing that comes to mind is like the procedure for like entering the atmosphere in the dropship. Like they call out what procedures they're doing at different points during that
It's
landing
actually,
sequence.
well, mostly because I know a lot of stuff, especially of space shit and stuff like that, so that's kind of just easy. But the second part is also that I tried to go and look at what's the most dramatic thing in, other media, like what is it called? Well, basically, if you look at other BattleTech games too, like the entering of the atmosphere and stuff like that, even in the cartoon, it's like a big thing, and then that's why it is. And also, I do know a lot of stuff about aeronautics and stuff like that, so that's why the guy actually spouting how to turn engines on and do this and that's something that I just do. It's something.
Okay. Yeah, so that is based on your actual knowledge as opposed to like you read it in a TRO or something.
Well, it's gonna be kind of hard to like read it in a TRO, right? It should be like a specific event, but yeah, I guess so.
Right. It's one of those things where it's like one of the challenges I run into with BattleTech is learning how the non-Battlemech technology works because some of it is explained in excruciating detail and a lot of the rest of it is just kind of hand waved. So trying to figure out how to describe it working for a scene can be really challenging. Uh,
Yeah,
so
I mean, some of it for me just is just logic. I'm just like, okay, so
right,
they're gonna have to
exactly.
enter the atmosphere, so they have to do this and that, and then they have to slow down, but not too much because so that the radar doesn't detect them, and stuff like that. That's kind of for me. I just kind of understand that. That's why the guy's going on, and the water in that planet is weird anyway because it's like deeper, bigger pressure and stuff like that. You can't have readings under it, and it's not explained, but because it doesn't have to be explained, it's a weird planet. Like
Right,
it's
exactly.
can't explain everything. And also then at that point, if you're starting to explain stuff, then people get bored. They're like, oh my god, just get to the action. I don't want to.
Right. Yeah, you get the Jules Verne syndrome.
Also, it's show don't tell. So
Right.
that's how something I
Exactly.
try to go. As there's not a lot of dialogue in my comics. I'm trying to make it so everyone sees what's going on. They don't have to like read what's going on. It's like not, oh god, no, I'm gonna have to read this whole panel now because there's like explaining the thing. It's like no, you're not dumb. You clearly know what's going on. So
All right. Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, like I look for those details. I really enjoy that sort of thing. So
glad someone does.
noticing
There you go.
noticing that you'd taken the time to actually make it somewhat believable as well, like fitting the setting, that was actually very rewarding. So
That's I think a big part of it. Like movies fail when they don't take setting into account. Like
right,
there's movies that just do something, and then the director just says like, well, the audience is stupid. Like let's just do this, and then like it's gonna be fine. And then everyone notices. It's like, it feels like you just treat us like we're dumb. So I just want to make it as believable as possible. It might take me a little bit more or a page more to just do it, but I think it makes it better. Like the whole entering of the dropship inside of the atmosphere could just be done as like we enter the atmosphere, done. But it makes it way more dramatic when it's like that, doesn't it?
Right, exactly. It's more interesting to read.
Mm.
So, out of all the characters you've created for Star Raiders, who would be your favorite and why?
It's kind of hard. Everyone, that's like asking someone to like paint pictures, like which one is their favorite. I mean, I guess you kind of could. You can't kind of ask that. Well, every single one of them, to be fair, has a certain place for what I think.
Let me rephrase it a little bit. Is there one that like you're particularly proud of?
I'm proud of them working together. That's what I'm proud of. Because
Okay.
making a character that's a good character is not that hard. Making that character work with your whole cast is hard. Because you can make a great character, but then if you fill the cast with just retarded like assholes, then it just becomes shit.
Right.
It's like if you think of it, that's a lot of shows that do that too. Like they really try to make that one character super good, and then they don't think about anything else going on. And it's like, well, it doesn't look good because everything around it looks like shit. So,
Gotcha. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good answer. Uh, on the subject of characters, though, I really enjoyed the way you made. I call him the protagonist. You said that he's not really a main character, but he's the one that we follow throughout. But I like the way that he comes full circle at the end of chapter 2. I won't spoil what happens, but it's very good. It does make me curious. How much experience do you have with writing? Have you been writing stories like your whole life, or is this a fairly new thing?
I mean, since I did comics, I wrote stories, and I guess my first stuff kind of. I definitely see that as a trial run for this, because this is something that I'm super proud of, and I want really everyone to see, and it has a following already, and it has, like, Battletech already has something, and there's people that like it already, and then their, what would you call that, whenever they criticize me, I take that criticism very seriously, because if you just do a comic about something that you invented, you need to make yourself a audience. But if you make yourself the audience that's there is there because they like your stuff, right? So you can't really ask them, is this good? Well, obviously it is, because they're your audience and they came in because they liked your story. I mean, your made-up story. But this is different. Battletech has its own fan base already. That's why I'm so proud when someone comes and says they like it, because they have different experiences from different people and different stories, and I am contributed to it, and they like mine. And it's like, wow, that's better.
Right. They've got more to choose from.
Exactly. And that's also what makes me really think how I write. Because it doesn't, I'm just like, fuck, whatever, I'll write it in. No, I really think of how to do it. What I usually have is in a chapter I would have the beginning to figure out, some kind of middle thing in the middle of some big action that happens, and the ending. And the parts in the middle are just how it goes. Like I just think of stuff and like I add stuff or take stuff away, and that's that can still be molded, but like those are already there. Like the beginning, the end, and some kind of middle climax. That's kind of what already is. It's already inside my brain, and I can't change it. I can only change it if something drastic, like I really want to change something big, but usually I don't. I usually want to just keep to the story.
All right. So you've made a very good self-contained story in these first couple chapters here. I think it's like you were talking about that slice of life earlier. I think that these two chapters provide that in a really good way. You've mentioned a chapter 3, so it looks like you're planning on doing more. Can you give us a hint as to what's next for the Raiders?
Well, if you look at the year, then you'll know.
Right.
Because something happens that year, and pretty much everyone gets involved, so
Okay.
I'm sure you know what's gonna happen.
Sure.
If you know where Planet Lancaster is, then you'll definitely know what's gonna happen. So.
All right.
If the year is shown in the beginning, whenever the first actual chapter starts, not the prologue, you see the year. Well, that's the same year still, and it's like, well, if you know what happens that year, and it's a pretty big event, and
Right. So you're planning on taking this like a decent way then, probably.
At least 13 chapters.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm at least planning to do this for the next 10 years. At least that.
Damn. Okay.
Yep.
That's quite something.
Well, I mean, I did the last one for such a long time that I'm like, why not this one?
Right, for sure. All right. Well, I mean, that's most of the questions that I've got pre-prepared here. I'm going to open it up to the chat in just a second.
Actually, before you open up the chat, I did want to say one thing. Maybe chat could actually answer. I have a Patreon for like $2, so it's like nothing. It's just if someone really wants to donate, it's beautiful, and I appreciate that. And you do get glimpses of new chapters there. You get like half pages and stuff like that posted over there, so people can see what's gonna happen before it does. But should I make like a limited like 3 or 2 person like thing for like a bigger amount, like I don't know, $100 or something? That someone donates. That's a monthly donation, and then I put their characters into the story.
I think that could work. I mean, that's largely up to you. I think it's a good idea. I mean, like, what's the worst that could happen? Is nobody joins up, and then you're just doing what you were doing anyway. You don't really lose anything. I'd say go for it. We'll take a look at the chat here. See what they're going up to. But yeah, we'll take some of their questions in a second. Before we do that, though, I have one more that I prepared for, and I know it's a remote possibility. I know that everyone's super busy around here, but just for fun, Twist of the Knife comic collab, even a remote possibility.
I'd say so, depending on just how much comic would that be?
Significant. That's the unfortunate part of it. No, it's
I sure could do it. I don't see why. What I should just do is I should just take myself for the next finish any schoolwork, tell every single person that I know that I died, and and just close myself in my office for like at least 2 weeks.
Yeah. No,
I'm
I'm
out every possible Star Raiders page that I can, because the next chapter is almost finished already.
Mm-hmm.
But I won't post it yet because I'm trying to I have to at least do some, I'm trying to get backlogs and stuff like that.
Okay.
Basically, I always post the next chapter whenever the next one is half done.
All right. So I'm like half joking. Only halfway though. What I have done is I've talked to Oswald. Oswald's my other artist, and Oswald does really solid character work. His mechs are good as well. So I'm just curious if maybe we could blend his characters with your backgrounds and maybe split the workload a little bit. I'm curious as to what that would look like. And again, I have no idea if that would be a concrete thing.
That would be way easier because I could just do all the mechs and backgrounds, and he could do all the characters.
Right, exactly. Well,
that would split the load 50-50, depending on how much one and the other have. But that would not be bad. I don't think when someone's inside of a cockpit and stuff like that, I can always just make the picture that you see through the cockpit, and then he draws the inside of the cockpit. I'm fine with that. I really don't care.
All right. Well, we can definitely run some experiments on that sort of thing and hammer out some details. But yeah, for sure. But
like I said, I could close myself in my house, just for 2 weeks, just pump out all the Star Raiders pages I can, and then basically have a free time.
Well, let's not take the suicidal route here. And
well, I'm just saying.
Right. No, I don't want to push you into that, but for sure, it's definitely. I mean, it's been a dream of mine to produce something like a comic, but I can't draw to save my soul, dude. Like, I have tried many times to learn how to draw. I don't have the patience for it. But what I do very well, the one thing I will give myself credit for, I think I'm a pretty good writer. So, I feel like we all have different strengths, you, me, and Oswald, and hell, I mean, our powers combined with Captain Planet or some shit. We'll figure it out.
Maybe we could, because I don't see why that couldn't work. It really depends also, of course, what heavy gear gives me.
Absolutely,
and,
yeah.
And also the big part is if I'm gonna or not gonna be contracted for the comic for that other person, which I think I might. But
Right. Well, I
for
mean, I obviously don't want to get in the way of that because those people would actually like pay you. so, so
yeah, it
I don't want to get in the way of you actually like supporting yourself. So obviously that's like I said, a half joking, but if it's something that you feel like you're really interested in your spare time, what little of it there is, for sure that would be a really fun thing to work at, or at least to give a shot.
sure, definitely.
Well,
One thing
shit.
as well that we could do is that I was thinking is you could do that some books do is that every page of your book has a picture up on it.
Mm-hmm.
So like instead of making a comic, you just make every page of the book have the picture of what's happening on it. And so you're technically kind of having a comic, but it's less of a comic and more just like that's what's happening at that moment. So you have a visual aid to what's, what kind of, let's say if a mech gets destroyed or like falls down, then you have the mech falling down and the picture under it. Or if someone ejects, you have the ejection under it. It's kind of a thing that you want. You provide visual aid to the reader in a sense. That's what I'm just saying because that's something I could do very easily. And then of course, whoever else you said that could draw the characters, they could do that very easily as well. But
Yeah, for sure. Because I've been meaning to rework Twist of the Knife. I kind of the problem with that story is that I was publishing my first draft, which is a big mistake, and you should never do that.
yeah,
Chapter by chapter, which is not a good way of doing it. It was just something I did on a whim. I didn't even think anybody would watch it. Now I have people who are actually invested in it. But I feel like I made a lot of really big missteps with the story. I want to like do a reboot, I guess, and
what about
focus
doing
on.
just a ten page prologue or beginning to the actual book as a
Yeah,
comic?
exactly. That's what I'm thinking. Like, start small. Obviously, you don't have to. We don't need to swing for the fences right off the bat, but a little intro to what the characters are like, what their situation is, to see if people are interested. Uh,
Right, right. That could be. I don't think that would be that big of an issue.
yeah, I think that could be a lot of fun. So I'm gonna put that on the back burner. We can hammer out those details a little later. I wasn't expecting you to actually go along with that, but I'm very happy that that's what happened here. So I'm gonna go back through the chat and see if I can find some questions from the audience. Keep typing questions if you have any. And I
I
noticed
think
a
I'm
couple
having a
here.
thing where I have a what is it like? I think I have a delay, so
Yes. So there is a little bit of a delay, but I can. I'm just gonna read out what the questions are from the backlog of the chat. Proven 22x asks, "Do you think in English?"
yes.
Okay. So yeah, like you were saying, that's like the sort of thing that you did most of your learning, it seems, in English. So that's kind of your default now.
Yep, it
All
is.
right, cool. Let's see. We got a lot of different people sharing their experiences. Macabre Derek says he's glad to see you're able to do an interview. A
The
lot.
champion lamb is illegal.
Yes, Champion LAM. Prince Leo of Nor says when he was a kid, played MechWarrior 2 on the Sega Saturn, and that's what got him into mecha in general.
That it was on the Saturn? I thought it was just on PC.
Oh no, MechWarrior 2 was on all kinds of stuff. There was a Super
Oh,
Nintendo game, I think there was a Genesis game and a Saturn game. I mean, they're very different games. It's not like it is on PC at all. There's a PlayStation version that's also very different. The console
wow.
versions of the game are all very different from each other.
I never
Uh,
knew that. I thought it was just the PC one and then the 3D boosted one, the better one. But
yeah, so there was
oh,
PC, there was 3D boosted, there was MS DOS. I think there was a Mac version even, uh, but there was the one that I played that wasn't like the PC game was the PlayStation game, which is funny. It's more like an arcade shooter. It's very fun. It plays like a PlayStation first person shooter, and like you shoot a few lasers at things and they die. And I'm pretty sure the heat gauge doesn't even work. I think it's just there for looks.
I think the usually the early console ones are pretty bad. Like any kind of games that were on PC first and then they ported on console, it just
Yeah,
crazy.
but they're not really ports though. They're built from the ground up. They're completely
Oh,
different games. Like the
Oh
Super
wow.
Nintendo game is, I think, if I remember correctly, it's a top-down shooter.
Oh no, I know that. I know
Yeah.
that.
So like it's a completely different type of game, and I have played that one a little bit, and it is very fun. So yeah, lots of good memories with Mech Warrior 2. People played it on all kinds of different systems. Let's see, we have Antelos Legos did nothing wrong. Solon the Lich, in response to seeing the artwork for the Jenner underwater, the shot that I showed off, says this is enhanced imaging. So we got
Yeah, I actually have a picture of I drew the cartoon in enhanced imaging on my DeviantArt.
yeah.
God, that cartoon, Jesus.
I did know. I went to your DeviantArt a while back and I noticed that. So uh, yeah, lots of praise for that bit of artwork that was shown off, and I think that's really your biggest strength is you capture a sense of atmosphere with your settings. That's really good. I think it's as good as anything Marvel or DC has put out. Definitely better than what they put out lately with their
Oh, thank you
comics.
so much. Well, I mean, yeah, that's true, but thank you so much. Also, one thing that I like to do is I like to like a few pages. I like to have them in a certain color. Like the underwater part is very dark and blue, and then when the heat resurfaces, it's a kind of dawn, so it's like a really bright orangey. Like I want to try to keep it like every part whenever you're reading, like, oh, that's that part when it's like the setting changes. It's not just always the same setting. It's like sun or whatever. It's like, yeah, even in the battle you see like slowly rain clouds approach, and then there's rain starts and thunder and stuff like that. You changes slowly. So I think, yeah.
Yeah, well, I love the scene where they all go to the bar and you have like an exterior shot where like the cars are going by and like the misty rain and like the way the lights are going through it just gives it this really, you can almost feel the wetness. It's really cool.
You can feel the wetness.
Yeah, that's that came out very wrong. So let's move on. Macabre Derek says he's curious about you introducing the clans at the start of your story, but seemingly left them aside. Curious on why you went to what seems to be a longer side quest from the main conflict established. I would say that's I can help answer this one. Like that's not the main thrust of the story. It's background for one of our main characters.
It's also like, what is it, 16 years before? Or no, is it 13 years? Yeah, 13 years before, because it says 13 years later.
Right. It's the dramatic flashback backstory for the main character. So the story isn't about the clan invasion. It's about a group of mercenaries in the years following that. So it's kind of like I said before. It does come full circle toward the end. Again, I don't want to spoil because
It's
I thought it
not
was
done
really
yet.
cool when I got to that point. But he did have he has an arc that plays into his character because of that background, and it's done very well. He also says probably one of the hardest parts of comic work is how much you have to keep dialing back the dialogue / narration in favor of visually showing it. Went into too many situations where someone was talking panel after panel, but not showing anything actually happening. It's a case of not leaning into the strength of the medium you're using. I know a few writers who don't understand comics, and that would definitely be a challenge, I think, for me, writing a comic. My approach would probably be to take it more like a screenplay and focus more on like leaving some cues as to what should be shown.
Like a screenplay. I do take it like a movie, because even when characters are talking, I always move the camera a lot.
Yes, and that is something I know. Like, it's never boring to look at what's going on.
Yeah, like whenever two people are talking, I don't make the Garfield thing when it's like from the side, belly up. It's, you always have from the back, showing the mech in front of them, showing the crates behind them. From the, it's. I know they're just talking, but it has to be somewhat interesting.
Yeah, Aaron J says, never heard of this comic until today, so when I have free time, I'll look it up. It's caught my interest, and I'm not much of a comic reader, and I think that's pretty high praise. I'm not much of a comic reader either, to be honest with you. I never was into superheroes. I didn't go to comics. We didn't really have a lot of comic stores where I was growing up. So I'm a movie guy. That's my thing. Movies and TV shows. But I do appreciate comics. And I've read a
That's
few
why when
comics that I
where
really
I was
love.
growing up, there was nothing because it was after the Civil War, so there was no nothing there. Not even you couldn't even buy a computer. So
Yeah, yeah, Jesus Christ. Yeah, I won't try to equate my experience to that, but I will say that living in Maine, there ain't shit. It's just trees everywhere. More recently, we've started to get some stuff in. There's some more nerd centric places you can go, but all the time I was growing up, it's just you want to go to the store, you go down to the gas station and get a soda, and that's about all that there is. We had a tiny ass little library that had nothing but like regular novels. There were no comics in that library, not even like graphic novels, until I was like in high school. So yeah, definitely a bit of a dearth. So I didn't grow up reading comics, and I've only kind of recently started getting into them. And now it's at the point you walk into a comic store and you're confronted with walls of comics and just stacks
yeah,
of boxes, and it's like,
I
oh
don't know if that's
Jesus
good.
Christ, what do I even do?
I don't know if that's good. I just don't.
Yeah, it's just it's tough. So, but I basically come. You have to go into a comic store knowing what you want to find.
Mm.
So it's kind of what I've been doing. I've been talking to people who actually know comics, and like last time I went to a comic shop, I walked in and asked the guy, "Hey, do you have anything of like the Shadow?" And so since the guy actually knew his own inventory really well, he brought me over to a bunch of old Shadow comics from, I want to say, like the 50s maybe.
Oh wow.
I don't know exactly when they came out. I didn't check, but they're older comics, and they're awesome, dude. Like they were really fun to read. So yeah, I've been getting into it a bit more. He also he also showed me a series of Shadow comics that he basically practically gave away for free, an entire run, because he's like, this is one of the worst things that's ever been made, but it's also kind of hilarious, and if you want to get it out of my inventory, I'll take like 75% off.
Oh
So
wow, damn.
so I got it, and he's right. By the end of the story, the Shadow is head on a robot body in like the future. Yeah.
I don't know. So
The Shadow is like a character who exists in like the 1930s film noir era.
oh,
So yeah, if you're not familiar with the Shadow, you should definitely take a look. Like I made that video on the Green Hornet. They're kind of
I saw it right
contemporaries.
now. It's under there. So yeah, I
Yeah,
see.
they're
See
kind
it
of
there.
similar contemporary characters. But the Shadow is more edgy, I guess you could say, but in a good way. He's very cool. All right, so let's look back at the chat here. Ivan Dewanda says, I'm reading the prologue at the moment, like where this is going. Fantastic. Garlic Bread says the webcomic looks interesting and he's going to check it out later. So we're already getting some publicity for you. Macabre Derek
As long as
says...
this video, is up on your channel, it's gonna be people are
Right.
gonna come and
Yeah, and I'm definitely gonna leave it published. Macabre Derek, Twist of the Knife is already 100 pages of comic. I don't think
Yes.
so. I would say that you would adapt it to comic form, so you wouldn't need nearly as much dialogue in it.
It's not the dialogue. It's that one thing with comics is, and that's something that okay, that's a hard part. Okay, there you go. You asked me what a hard part is. That's the hard part. Trying to make sense of what you're putting in the comic, what's in your brain, how to put it in the comic, and how to make someone that's reading it understand, oh, that's what's going on. Like, okay, I need this mech to run and turn and go behind the building and then wait for the other mech to, like, attack it from the rear. I'm just saying whatever. But how do you make that in a page logical so that people don't get confused? Wait, where the hell did he go? Wait, what? How is he there? That's the issue.
Right. So
That's
something that you can describe in like a couple words in a novel, takes like multiple panels in a comic to get across,
yes.
depending on what it is. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Because
So
like
that's
you
what
could just
makes,
write he ran behind the building and spun around. Well, now you have to show that visually with still images, and that's going to take
Yes.
multiple still images.
And that's the same. He said, Twisted the Knife is already a 100-page comic. It could be a 200-page comic.
Right. Well, that's the
Because
thing
any
is
mech action could be drawn out to like a huge amount.
that yeah, and that's the thing. Like we would rework the story so that it wouldn't require that much. Like we would there's a plenty of things that could be cut or changed so that they can be communicated more efficiently. When you're writing it out in longhand, you have all the time in the world, but you can definitely tighten it up quite a bit. But yeah, that's I agree with what Aaron J says. A lot of coordination. Yes, I definitely think it's doable though.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of Derek brings up another good point. Remember, it's a lot of internal character thoughts and reactions, which may get tricky. Yes, there is a lot of that, but I do think that that can be handled in a visual way. I think that we could figure out how to communicate these things visually. Ivan DeWanda suggests light novel, but with pictures every 2 pages. Maybe a sort of hybrid approach.
That's what I was saying before, with every page having like a picture.
Yeah, yeah, perhaps we'd have to look into that. So Macabre Derek says, "Here's a question: what are you looking for after your first draft when writing?"
Was that for me or you? That's I don't know.
That's for you.
For after the first draft when I'm writing it, as I said already, I don't really have like a draft sort of thing. It's like I know the beginning, the end, and then I want to form the middle. So whenever I like put down the story and like I the first thing I'm looking for when I'm doing the first draft, okay, that's actually easy to answer question, is how to put it into the page, because the words, as we just said, don't communicate well with the comic book page. You can't just put words on top of a page. You have to okay, where the hell is this gonna go? Like, if they're gonna be doing this action in this thing, how many panels do I dedicate to the action? How many panels do I dedicate to the words? How can I make the words pop out more, like be more dramatic and stuff like that? And if you go and look at my comic, actually, I have a very, very specific approach on how I make pages, and it's basically I try to make every page by itself be as dramatic as possible to when you stop reading it. So it's like something happens, reaction to what's happening, something else needs to happen, the thing starts happening, and then the page switches. So because one thing that I was always facing whenever you're drawing comics or whenever you're reading comics, sorry, the second that you're turning the page, you're bored. You have to not be bored. You have to be really anticipating what's going to be on the next page. And so finishing the page up with something really high, like a high octane sort of moment, like at one moment there's a general who does a DFA, and then the general is flying through the air, and before he lands is when you need to switch the page. To be like, oh my god, what's going to happen? And then you switch the page.
Right, right. You have to
sort of thing.
Yeah, you have to have an understanding of how your attention is drawn to things.
Right, and so not only is it how I'm gonna, when I do the first draft, how I'm gonna actually put everything into a comic book, how much dedication is gonna be action, how much is gonna be words, but also how do I make every page be interesting? Like something's happening.
Right. You also have to make it so like you don't notice that's happening. Because I'll admit, like reading your comic, I didn't notice that. I did notice that I was always wanting to turn the page. Which is good, but like I didn't actually notice that it was an intentional layout thing. I might go back and reread it just to see how that's done, because I didn't notice it at all. It's really cool. It's very subtle.
You can definitely that's something that I'm trying to do when I'm writing, because if you don't do it, if you paste, like let's say if I did it the other way where the page starts at a low point, it then goes high, then something really important happens, and then happens to the end, at the end of the page, why would you want to turn the page?
Right.
I mean, you will, because you want to read the story, but it's not like the adrenaline moment. but you just move that a bit further, and it's like, whoa. It's basically how you would, the best way to describe it would be every page is like half of a circle, and then the other page is like the other half of the circle connecting, so it's like, waves.
Hmm.
So whenever you turn the page, the wave has to go up. You're like, oh wow, I'm gonna turn the page, and then whenever you turn it, you get a sigh of relief of whatever happens, and then it goes again and again and again.
Okay. Well, I mean, thinking back to comics that I've read, I can definitely kind of see that. Uh, but yeah, I never noticed it while I was going through. Aaron J says someone just make Twist of the Knife as a MechWarrior 5 mod. It wouldn't be a very good one. There's not a lot of mech action in it, really. It's mostly character stuff, which is something that would also be reworked. It's one of the things I feel was the weakness of the story, that it was too much talking, not enough doing, which is a struggle that I've always had when writing, because I think that I can make interesting dialogue and character conflicts that way. But like, this is BattleTech. We're here for giant robots, so I gotta break. That's one thing I plan on doing. One of the ways, if I redo it, I'm not going to have that side plot where Caspian takes most of the squadron away to some other planet to search after lost tech, because I think really the big draw of Twisted the Knife as a story, what would make it really good, would be to have him pitting his wits against Damien, to have like their two ideologies going at each other directly, which we're not getting because Caspian is off on some other planet dealing with some other clan dude, and everyone else is dealing with Damien. And I feel like it's a missed opportunity. I've run off in search of the cliche Lost Tech Brian Cash thing as opposed to actually telling the interesting story. So in a reboot, I would definitely have more mech action. I mean, it wouldn't be tons of it because it is a resistance movement. They can't afford to throw their mechs at things all the time for logistics reasons. But there would be more action. Like not all mechs either, but like actual action.
Believe me, a you can have a ton of action with a locust fighting technicals.
Yeah, for
You can
sure.
have a ton of action with just that.
Yeah, or
You know
like
how
you're going through and doing a covert operation using mask on a battlemech, and then suddenly there's like a point of elementals out of nowhere. It's like, oh shit! Like there's
yeah,
tons that you
that
can
would
do
be a
with that.
problem.
Yeah, for sure, exactly. So now you have infantry and a mech against a bunch of elementals. What do? You could make all kinds of interesting stuff out of that. It's not a big scale fight, but it's exciting because it's perilous for the characters.
Yeah, well, most of my stuff I tried also not to do the biggest scale. It's like it's about you'll never. I mean, you don't know what you're gonna see still in the comic, but it's not big fights. Mostly because of the fact that again, I want it to be canon, and second of all, it's easier to follow because if
Right.
not, you just get lost.
Yeah,
Because it's a
it's
comic.
not so much about making it a spectacle. It's more about making it important to your characters.
Yes.
That's something that I feel like a lot of movies fail to do, where they want to make the big action set piece with all these characters and all these extras running around and everyone's dying and it's so brutal and horrible.
Yep.
But the audience is invested in your characters. It's about making it matter to your characters. You can still have those big action scenes, but what's most important is to capture how this affects the individual people that are there. So
Very good. That's a very good point.
the example I point to is Pickett's charge in the movie Gettysburg. It's a huge scene, and tons of people are dying, but we're always cutting back to our characters like Kemper and Pickett and Lee, and particularly Hancock and Armistead, who are the friends on opposite sides. That provides an emotional core to the battle scene that gives it so much more weight than just watching dudes throw themselves at each other.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, for sure. And I mean, one good thing is if it is a large battle, you should always try to stick with a character. That's a
yes.
very important thing too, because that then you just kind of have what's happening. But
Right.
yeah,
Otherwise, you just get lost. Like
yes,
there are some things that can balance that. I mean, like if you look at some Marvel movies, I think of some shots from Infinity War, where they had that big fight against the guys coming in through the force field. And what is the fight scene? It's not just like we're showing tons and tons of clashing and stuff. You have little bits of that, but it's cutting back and forth between the heroes and their little moments and the stuff that they do. And that makes it more interesting because we don't really care about the massive army. We care about our characters.
Yeah, you're very right. But also one thing is that's different is that models not models, sorry, what you call it, characters in a movie move, and characters in a comic book don't, and it's
Right.
very hard to actually make it seem like the big battle scene is going on, and for you not to get lost if you have stuff showing around, like
Right.
if you're switching through multiple characters or whatever. So that's also one important thing is that a cartoon or a movie it's a medium where stuff moves, and to show a big scene, something happening, you need only a couple of seconds.
Right.
And here you would need a page or two, and that's the issue.
Yeah,
That's where
I like the way Berserk handles it, because they have big armies fighting each other, and what they typically do is they'll have like a big, almost like an establishing shot, like a 2-page spread that shows like this beautiful. I mean, like the way the guy drew it is absolutely glorious, but he'll have like this 2-page spread that just shows absolute chaos on the fight, like
I
from
like those two.
from like a zoomed out perspective, and then boom, right to our characters and what they're doing, and then doesn't leave them for the rest of the fight.
That's kind of how I'm gonna handle it. If they're gonna
So
be
you
bigger
still
fights
get that
this way.
sense of scale, but at the same, but you don't get lost.
Yeah, that's a very you do like the zoomed out 2 key shot kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's go back to the chat here. Solon the Lich says moist. Go fuck yourself. So Prince Leo of Nor says, I like what I've read so far. I shared the comics link with a couple of Discord servers I'm in.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Way to go, dude. Thank you very much. Yes, Dark Gray Fox. Looks like that got clarified there. So yes, Twist of the Knife is my story. Star Raiders is Spacer's comic. And we're thinking of maybe working together on something as well. So, Macabre Derek, he's been contributing a lot to the chat. It was some really insightful stuff. Thank you very much, Derek. Says page turns for comics needs to be a reveal. Junji Ito uses the last panel before the page as a tease for what is about to happen or a reaction to what we're about to see when we turn it. And yeah, that goes to what we were saying. So that's another great. I've read some Junji Ito, and I have noticed that with his. He says there's a lot of tricks to comics that make people who write for any other medium will struggle with. There's a few things that most don't know to consider when writing it. He says, I think any fight scene needs to be more than hands being thrown. It's a physical debate. The conflict needs to showcase something about the characters and what defines them. Right, and that goes for any medium, to be sure. I mean,
Yeah,
look at like the mech fights in, geez, anything. Look at Gundam or Macross or Battletech, any of them. Does it make sense for the characters to be able to hear each other in the cockpits when they're on opposite sides? No, realistically, they can't do that. Or like if they're dogfighting each other in fighter jets, they wouldn't be linked up to each other's headsets. They wouldn't be talking to each other in real life. But the battle is about more than just having a realistic fight. It's about the two characters opposing, viewpoints coming at each other. So it's important to have them be able to communicate with more than just their hands and fists. It's like you can have it without dialogue, to be sure, but there needs to be something to show that it's more than just throwing hands, like he said.
One thing to be sure though as well with that is that's why most of my stuff whenever when I'm writing, actually they don't talk to each other, but in Battletech a lot of times they do talk to each other.
Yes.
Like, you can go to another person's in the games, in books, in cutscenes, and even in in the cartoon. Or the cartoon is a cartoon, but still, they can do it, so it's not like it's impossible to do.
No, it's something that's established in the universe to be sure. But like, I mean,
Yes.
if we're talking in terms of like realistic military operations, you'd encrypt your communications. You don't want the enemy listening to you.
Well, I
When
mean,
you're
I always thought it was more like a push to talk sort of thing, but
Yes, it kind of is. But then you look at like video games and they're shouting orders to each other, and you're hearing it, and it's like you really shouldn't be putting that
oh,
over the open channel. But I don't. My point is, I don't mind because it doesn't. It's not important. What's more important is the way that these characters are interacting with each other, and it allows for that. And so, yeah, it's a bit of a hand wave, and you could nitpick it if you wanted. But I think that the benefit that you get from it is more than worth the little tiny hit to your suspension of disbelief.
that's very true. That's very, very, very true. It's that's something that one thing is also with me is when people from other mechs and stuff like that don't speak, it makes them feel more threatening as well.
Yes, especially if it's in a setting where characters usually do talk to each other, and you get the guy who stays silent. That's a really big thing. I think of what comes to mind off the top of my head is like Ace Combat. Uh,
Right.
Ace Combat 7 and 5, their antagonists are characters with very few words. They show up, and like those games are full of dialogue. Characters yelling and screaming at each other all the time. You can't even tell what they're saying half the time because you're trying to just focus on flying. But there's dialogue everywhere, and then just there's a moment of quiet and just a short sentence or nothing, maybe like a laugh or something. It's all, and that's all that it takes.
It's all it takes to give that character like
He's
life.
scary now. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
not monologuing at you. Everyone else is monologuing. This guy is staying quiet because he's going to act, and he knows it doesn't matter what he says because you're not going to be around long enough to listen to it anyway.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a really good way of doing that. Oh man, I mean, it works in movies too, where
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, the movies are different though, but yeah, because the movies you're not actually acting. You're not a part of it as
right.
you're watching.
Well, my point is like it's across all media. So like
Yes.
if
Yes.
whether it's a novel, a comic, or a movie, anything like sometimes less is more when it comes to dialogue. Like we all want to hear what the character has to say to be sure, but every once in a while there's room for a character who just is there and doing his thing, and you know what's going through his mind. He doesn't have to tell you what's going through his mind because he's acting.
Well, you'll definitely see more of the what you would say realistic, quote unquote, non-talking sort of thing now going forward. So I think you'll like that. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Well, I mean, I wasn't complaining when I talked about that.
No,
To
I'm
be
just
sure.
saying that there's gonna be. So
Okay. Well, for sure. We got another question from Derek. Spacer, what kind of advice would you give to Mage as a writer when working with a comic illustrator? Yes, I would also very much like to hear the answer to this.
the thing is, I haven't read or sorry listened to Twisted Knife yet totally. So I would say I would need to go through it first. But I
No,
would
you
need to
wouldn't.
go
I'm going to be reworking the whole thing basically from
again.
scratch.
That's what I wanted to say. But I would first like him to rework it to like when he thinks it's good, and then I can go through it and I can be like, okay, that's this. But one thing that I would definitely say is more mech action, which is good for drawing and stuff like that. And the good part is that some of the descriptive drawing, when let's say someone's punching someone, doing something, whatever, that's going to be very easy for us to put into the comic because we're just drawing the actual comic then at that point. Like you're describing what I have to draw, which is great because then I don't have to think, oh, how do they interact? It's like, oh, that's how they interact. That's great. That's a good thing. That's a positive thing.
Yeah. So
But
here's one from me. Like, would you rather I write it out like a traditional story, or would it be easier if I like wrote it like a script for a screen?
it should be like a traditional story. Script for the screen that or traditional story, it's gonna be the same thing because we would need to sit down and talk a lot about it anyway.
Okay.
It doesn't really matter what kind of thing that's trying to adapt the book page by page to a comic is always going to be super hard because it's not the same, it's not a visual medium. So, but I think it could be done no problem. I
Okay.
just think
So
you would need to take like 3 or 4 hours and take a few beers, sit down and just read slowly through it. And I would have a notebook, and then we would sketch out pages for each play. Okay, so what are they talking? They're talking about, okay, this guy's talking to this guy. They're coming. Okay, good. So they're gonna be here, and where are they? And you'll be like, okay, they're here. Okay, so they're here, and they're talking, and they're standing across each other. Okay, good. Let's see what this, like, slowly going through it. And of course, obviously, we know who's talking what, because you already say, I hope it says in the thing, like, the guy says this, and then we really know what the fuck people say. So the part of, like, actually writing stuff in won't be a problem. The amount of stuff they say, that might be a problem.
gotcha. All right.
Because,
So
like, if it's like half a page of someone talking, it's gonna be like, where the hell are we gonna put that in the comic?
right, exactly.
Amount of
So so basically, what you're saying is like play to my strengths, and then you play to yours, and we just
Yes.
kind of make it work. Yeah, that
Yes.
sounds like a great idea. All
Because
right.
it's gonna be clunky. We're gonna have to, like, get through it somehow, but I don't think it's gonna be impossible, especially if you have another person to do some stuff. That's why I said either we could do the thing of, like, having a like what someone says in the comment section, like a light novel. So it's like every single time something happens, there's a picture underneath of the actual page. That's one. And then the other one would be to do, like, a short 10-page comic book first, and then go and see what else we could do. Like, advance slowly, not just go like yeet.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So we'll definitely talk more. We have to, like, set aside a couple hours at a time and just, like, talk about it. But yeah, we've gone through all the questions here. We've gone through the chat. I think we've gotten to everything. So is there anything else you'd like to say to the folks here before we peace out?
I would just like to say thank you so much, Mage, for finally having the interview time and everything. I hope that whenever other people see this, they're gonna see the comic and everything. But again, really, for me, the comic is not something that I earn money from. I just really want people to just get into Battletech even more. And if anyone ever sees the video, they can go to my Facebook thing, which you can find through the comic book page, which is down there. And then, say, well, you should do this, or you should do that, or I like the comic, but you should try this, or try that. And I don't know, I could like to ask the chat, what do you think, chat? Should I do the thing with like, opening on my Patreon, like, 2 maybe slots, or maybe 3, 2 would be better, of like $100 donation per month, and then I just put, put characters, like your character, into the comic book? You basically tell me, okay, my character is this and this and this, and I would like him to act like this and this and this, and then I basically put him in. Do you think that would be a good idea? Do you think that would be a bad idea? I don't know.
Yeah, I've given my 2 cents on it. We'll give the chat a second to respond. Ivan Dewanda says he's very glad to discover your work. Macabre Derek wishes you good luck. We'll give them a couple more seconds here. But yes, definitely thanks to all of you guys for tuning in. This has been one of our better streams, I think. I've had a lot of fun talking about stuff. To be sure, I had a different response. It was like a joke question I threw in at the end there, but I got a serious answer to it. So there's potentially something to get excited about in the future here.
Oh, you mean for your thing?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah.
So we'll give them a couple seconds longer to respond to your question.
Anyone can always respond later on the video too.
That is true. Like leaving a comment on the stream after it's closed down.
Yes.
We'll definitely do that. I have got to go get some lunch because it's 2 in the afternoon here in Maine, and I haven't eaten yet. So
it's 1 here, and my gaming group is coming in 15 minutes, and I have to go ready the Battletech table upstairs.
All right. Well, garlic bread seems like the Patreon says Patreon seems to be a good idea. He's talking about something else.
Oh no! They would be added as side characters, of course. They would be
Gotcha.
like in a chapter. Your character would be there, and then
it'd be like a cameo.
Just, not a cameo. Like the whole chapter, your character would be there. it would be like a part of the story. It wouldn't be like, oh, your character just kind of pops up and then goes
Okay,
away. No, no,
so
no.
like a guest star.
Yes.
Okay,
I
cool.
mean, you'll see like stuff like that, like what already you saw in some of the other ones, when there's a persistent character throughout the whole part, and then he's not there anymore, kind of like that, sort of like when a good way would be like the Merrick general guy that they talked to and stuff like that. Like he's there for like 3 or 4 pages. He's there. He's not just gone. So
All right. Well, that's yeah. It looks like people are saying that that would be a good idea. I mean, I would definitely recommend trying it out.
I will
Uh,
try it out.
we're gonna call it a day here. Thanks again to everyone for tuning in. I have a link to the webcomic down in the description, so if you guys want to go check that out, I highly recommend it. And until next time, this is Mage Leader and Spacer signing off. All right, cool.